Never late, never miss. To the point that if they didn't show up to a session, I'd be trying to find my phone and check if I've got a message or if something's wrong.
Welcome back to the Athlete's Edge podcast. For today's episode, we've worked with 50 pro athletes and 36 semi-pro athletes. On today's episode, we are sort of breaking down what separates athletes from the ones who make it and from the ones who don't. So, joined by Timothy Madden. Tim, so yeah, give me a bit of a rundown in terms of, in your opinion, why do you think so many athletes who are talented still fall short?
I think the big one is consistency. So I just don't think a lot of athletes are consistent enough with their preparation, whether that's their sport training, their athletic development, their sleep routines, nutrition, all that stuff stacks over time, which we've discussed a few different podcasts now and different reels. I think from a skill perspective, I think times are changing from whether that's the smaller backyards, whether that's the technology. I think from a sports skill perspective, we're not out there playing as much. We're not having hands on things like the footy and the basketball as much as what we used to back in my day. So I think what we're seeing is a big gap, not only in some of our habits, but I think we're seeing off the back of that as well a skill deficiency, which it's making it tough because the talent pool, and a lot of sports are talking about this now, it's getting pretty big, and especially overseas, but Australia is no exception, that the talent pools are shrinking.
What's your kind of definition for consistency? What does that look like? And maybe provide a couple of examples.
Never late, never miss. Yeah. So to the point that if they didn't show up to a session, I'd be trying to find my phone and check if I've got a message or if something's wrong. Do I need to ring family or something because I'm worried they've had an accident on the way, or something's happened, because they just are always there, which I can't say. Some people are almost shocked if they do show up, and the concern there is they're obviously not building the right habits to get any results. So I look at some of the guys and girls we've worked with that have gone on and never had to doubt whether they were going to show up, to the point that sometimes you have to tell them to have a day off. So they would just show up regardless of whether they were on 2 leg injuries and an arm injury. They'd show up and say, I've still got 1 arm, let's go. Versus one family travel over an hour to get to us, and then obviously the same back home at a 6 a.m. session 4 times a week. Like I said, they're always early. They bring 4 kids with them. So just the level of commitment that they demonstrate is, whether they make it in their sport, we'll see. They're all pretty talented, but it's just great habits. That's going to set them up for life. The issue with consistency is you only know what you see. So unless you're around someone all the time, you don't know really, truly how consistent they are. So if you think of people you play with, so say you see your teammates twice a week, and you go, when I'm with them, they train pretty hard. You don't know, unless you're with them every other minute of the day, that they might be doing 2 a days, in terms of training every other day. But because you're not there, you don't see that. So you think and you tell yourself, I'm doing a lot, I'm pretty consistent, I'm working pretty hard. But until you see someone that does way more at a much higher level, and you're alongside them to see that, you don't get your expectations reset. And that's what some of our swimmers do. So that's probably the other example with some of our team sport athletes who think, I've got footy and basketball 3-4 nights a week, and struggle to fit the gym in and stuff. Well, they're in the pool by 6 a.m, 6 mornings a week. They do 3 afternoons on top of that. Some of them do other sports, and they're still trying to fit 2 and 3 gym sessions in. So they just make it work because they have to, because that's what the sport demands. And that's the culture they're around. They see swimming. We're talking to Mitch, and he did an AIS camp with the swimmers and said, what was the big takeaway? And he goes, it's awesome when you see that level of athlete. So this is like Australian junior squad kind of level, so they've got half an hour prep before their swim session. They're half an hour early for their half an hour prep. So they're there prepping for prep before they swim. That's just the level these kids are at, and that's just the mindset they've got. Whereas we'll have kids rolling 10 minutes late to the 2 sessions they do a week. Well, that's not elite standards.
So why do you think people tend to struggle so much when it comes down to consistency?
I think it's hard because it's not one thing in isolation in terms of, like this gym session in the morning. Obviously then it's impacted by sleep and what they do the day before. So I think there's a lot they've got to get right. If I think bigger picture, it's probably a bigger why to why they're doing it. Not just, I do this because I want to, make the AFL, for example, or be an NBA player. It's like, what does that actually mean for you? Is it going to change your life? Is it going to change your family's life? I think if you have a bigger why and reason for doing things, if it doesn't change your life that much, it's probably not enough pressure and there's not enough at stake to probably make you do hard things. So it probably doesn't matter that much.
Yeah,
which is fine too.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're probably not going to have the results that other kids are getting.
Yeah, usually action is spurred by a negative experience, or you're trying to move away from something or towards something is usually the motivator. If you don't have that, it's hard to be consistent and hard to find the purpose.
Well, how many kids parents reach out off the back of not making a team versus I've made a team so I'll reach out? It's often the other way.
And I'm guilty of that.
I'm
very guilty of that.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was running away from something, wanted to get quicker. Whereas a lot of parents, they are more reactive than proactive in this space, and maybe it is a bit more of a education thing, or maybe it is a bit of more of a wake up call.
Yep.
With transitioning back to some of the skill development and some of the lack of that we're seeing, especially in the young kids and some of the academy days that you've gone to and haven't been, let's say, too impressed with. So how can athletes today replicate that sort of environment of, always having a footy in their hand? I know Brownie's always massive on it, so...
Yeah, it came off the back of being allies and arguably the best player in the country, always had a foot in his hand. On Triple M, Stevie J and Dale Thomas were talking about the lack of skill in the modern day footballer, and that they would be confident they could beat 80% in a skills challenge or on kicking on their opposite foot, because it's just not done now. I remember 10 years ago, Nick Dalceno was talking about this, that his thing was with smaller backyards now, kids just aren't out the back kicking footies. He goes, he would have kicked the footy a million times outside of training before he got drafted. So it's making the most of training. So harp on it at things like the bushies and at rep programs around that 15 to 30 minutes before training, how much it's wasted, just standing there kicking to kick every footy. Even now I can still kick the footy with you and probably hit every target if I just chip the footy to you. If you say kick her off one step, changing direction, trying to dart it in, not taking the time to really set myself, I'll probably miss every kick. So it's doing things at an intensity that actually makes you better. And then things like you said, ball in hand. So finding times to play, it's not structured training, but, I remember being a kid and always get your footies outside, breaking the house, ruining mum's garden, all this sort of stuff, because we're just always kicking the footy. If the sun was out, even if it wasn't, we're outside, kicking the footy with brother and sister around, squashed another plant, don't tell mum. Because it's just all we did. And from my experience, I was similar in that I would say my skills were always pretty good, because that's what I always did. What I didn't do was the other stuff, and I didn't know at the time. I didn't have this sort of option that to do speed work, to do structured gym. It was pretty much just get a gym membership and away you went. So I didn't have the athletic traits to really progress through. But it's if you walk into school, bounce the footy. How many kids can bounce the footy left and right hand? There's no reason why you can't bounce the footy 1,000 times on the way to school. So things like that, where you just, how do you find a way to make it almost part of your lifestyle so that you're just getting incidental touches and skill development off the back of it.
And so off the back of that, what's the danger of waiting until you make it before you start training like a pro and preparing like a pro?
Well, the big danger is you don't get to the level in time, so you just don't make it. So if you're waiting to get to the next job before you start preparing yourself for that job. So if you want to be an AFL player, wait till I'll work on it when I'm drafted. That's what the recruiters don't look at it that way. If you said that to a recruiter, they'd line through your name. They want you to see that you're doing the work now because you want that outcome. So the number one is you just don't get there, you're not good enough. The danger is number two is you might still get there off a bit of talent and off a bit of work, but you're underprepared. So the biggest feedback we get from AFL level staff, for example, and be the same in like college level if you're a basketballer, and other programs like BAS, AIS stuff, is kids that come there don't have the foundations in the gym, the movement quality, so they've got to strip them right back to load them up, which then just delays your progression. So the danger is they get spat back out pretty quick. So we know the average career in AFL is like 3.5 years, something like that. So imagine if the job you're in now, all of high school is to prepare you for 3 years of a job, and you have to be the boss, running the show, or you're out the door. You'd view things pretty differently. So it's going in as prepared as you can be, so that you make the most of your opportunities. You don't have to be perfect, but you've got to be as ready as you can be without knowing what's fully involved. And that's the quote. You got to dress for the job you want, not the job you've got, because otherwise you stay at the level you're at. At that point in time, to get to where you want to go, you almost got to believe you're already there and prepare as such.
So if you were advising a sort of, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old around what steps it kind of takes to get and make that pro level, what would you kind of advise them?
Get in the right environment. Don't have to be in a rush when you get there, but immerse yourself in it and make sure you start to learn the lessons. So have some fun, fall in love with the process, in terms of the training, all the hard stuff. I just heard a quote, listened to a podcast this morning on the way home from the gym around the 3 stone cutters. Have you heard that one?
No, I haven't.
It's a amazing one.
And
And it's all about perspective. So a guy goes up to the first stone cutter and says, what's stone cutting like? Basically, how's your job? He goes, it's the worst thing in the world. Body aches. I hate it. It's hard work, hard labour, long hours. And he goes, oh, yeah, right, that doesn't sound great. Moves to the second one. He said, yeah, look, it's okay, but it's not the greatest, but it's a job, feeds my family. And the third one says, I love it. Yes, it's hard, but I'm building the cathedrals for the future that for generations to come, my kids will get to use and be a part of and visit and stuff. So it's all the same job. It's just perspective around, if I'm looking at it from a micro level and all the negatives versus if I'm like really holistic and future and focused and very positive in my mindset, then obviously, you put up with more of the crap and the hard stuff to get there. So I think that's a skill, and everyone's different, and it comes a lot from your past experiences and family and your friends and all that sort of stuff as well that shape that. But it would be getting the right environment, start to think like an athlete, behave like an athlete. Even at a young age, we don't want to put pressure on them, but they want to start to understand that things are hard. And this is like, we drip feed some of this stuff in for my 4-year-old around, you don't always get what you want. Sometimes you got to take it, and that's through hard work, it's through some sacrifice. It's getting used to, I guess, those sort of ideas, because it takes time. And if you figure out that it's not for you in the process, then hopefully people will just go, I want to be healthy. You get one body, so that you learn to look after yourself and be active and healthy for the rest of your life. If you really love it and you're pretty talented, and it all works out for you, then hopefully you can go make a pro career and make some good money and build a big reputation and go on to bigger and better things.